Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something incredibly powerful. We're going to unpack the tragic psychology of youth violence by looking closely at the harrowing events of the Rumble in S.E. Hinton's classic, The Outsiders. We often think of gang fights in literature as these simple, straightforward battles of good versus evil or rich versus poor. But as you'll see today, the reality is far more complex, deeply personal, and ultimately incredibly tragic.
But before we get into the actual physical blows and the clash between the greasers and the Sox, we need to ask ourselves a pretty crucial question. It's one that hangs over this entire analysis. If you knew winning would cost you absolutely everything, would you still fight? This is really about the true cost of conflict and the illusions we build up just to justify stepping onto a battlefield. Keep this in the back of your mind as we break down what really happens when these boys decide to go to war.
Act 1. The Illusion of Purpose. We're starting off in those chaotic, adrenaline-fueled hours leading right up to the Rumble. The greasers are approaching the upcoming violence with this crazy acrobatic energy. They're doing mid-air somersaults off the porch, chanting, and applying excessive amounts of hair oil to proudly mark themselves as hoods. They're completely masking their very real nerves with a steady stream of wisecracks. They're hyping themselves up, creating this infectious, almost glamorous illusion of rebellious pride. Honestly, they treat the impending violence almost like a high-stakes pep rally.
But wait a second. Beneath all those flips and the heavy hair oil, we really have to hit pause and ask, why do they actually fight? The narrator, Ponyboy, does this mental survey of his brothers and friends to figure out the deeply personal emotional drivers compelling them to step into that vacant lot. And what he finds? It completely shatters the idea that a gang fights for a single unified purpose. Let's actually break down these motivations because it's fascinating. Soda Pop? He fights for fun. To him, it's just action, like a drag race. Steve fights out of pure hatred. He literally just wants to stomp the other guy. Derry fights for pride, to show off his physical strength. 2-Bit fights purely for conformity. As he puts it, shoot, everybody fights. And Ponyboy realizes that the only real justifiable reason to fight is self-defense. This brilliant breakdown shows us the complex group dynamics at play. They are supposedly standing there as a united front, but in reality, every single boy is fighting to fulfill an entirely isolated personal need.
And that illusion of a unified brotherhood, it begins to crack even further when they finally arrive at the lot. Ponyboy's loyalty to the whole hood lifestyle really fractures when he looks at his own group of buddies and then contrasts them with the hardened Brumley and Shepherd gangs standing right next to them. The greasers are just kids fighting with skin, and they aren't looking to be hoods forever. But the others, they're strictly organized, they're used to weapons, and as Ponyboy chillingly realizes, they are future convicts. Suddenly, that glamorous illusion of gang loyalty starts looking like a very dark, inescapable trap.
Act 2. The brutal reality.
That whole energetic, pep rally illusion evaporates literally the second the Sox arrive in their clean Madras shirts and 4 silent carloads. It drops us straight into the cold, harsh reality of the Rumble. Derry steps forward to start the fight, and who meets him? Paul Holden. Now, these two aren't strangers. They actually used to be buddies. Paul is the best halfback on Derry's high school football team, but now they're facing off with pure hatred. Simply because Derry works for a living to keep his family together and Paul is a privileged junior in college from the West Side. It just perfectly captures the tragic absurdity of their conflict, a friendship completely destroyed by class boundaries.
They're circling each other, and the silent tension is just incredibly heavy. And then it snaps. Dallas Winston suddenly screams out, "Hold up, hold it!" Dally arrives out of nowhere, having literally forced his way out of a hospital bed with a switchblade just to join the chaos. His arrival kicks off the violence, and immediately, all that pre-fight excitement just vanishes into thin air. The fight itself, it completely strips away any of that romanticism we saw earlier. It's really just a brutal sequence of gasping, cussing, and blinding pain. Ponyboy gets pinned to the ground and heavily slugged. Then he's accidentally trampled by his own ally, Tim Shepherd, knocking the breath right out of him. He's violently kicked in the ribs, and finally kicked in the head so hard it stuns him into this detached, buzzing daze. There is zero glory here. It's purely about survival. So, the Sox finally break and run away, but just look at the devastating physical toll it took to get this so-called triumph. Tim Shepherd has a broken nose, Steve has 3 broken ribs, 2-Bit has a busted hand and blood streaming down his face, and Derry is bruised with a cut across his forehead. This right here is what winning looks like in their world. Derry announces their victory with this simple declaration, "We won. We beat the Sox." But he says it in a tired, completely exhausted voice. And we really have to stop and ask ourselves, did this shattered, bleeding outcome actually fulfill any of those personal needs we looked at earlier? Did Steve's hatred get resolved? Not at all. Did 2-Bit find real belonging? No way. They're just broken boys standing in a dark lot.
Act 3. The Tragic Epiphany. There is absolutely no time to celebrate this hollow victory. Dallas drags a dizzy, concussed Ponyboy into a stolen car for a frantic, siren-wailing race to the hospital. Johnny's dying and they desperately need to see him. During this dizzying drive, a raving Dallas reveals his ultimate defense mechanism. He says, "You get tough like me and you don't get hurt." This perfectly captures Dally's entire worldview. He fundamentally believes that hardening yourself completely, shutting off your emotions and embracing violence is the only way to survive the pain of the world. It is his armor.
But all that frantic momentum, all that supposed toughness, it just crashes into this scary, awful quiet the second they reach the hospital room. The doctor lets them in, and it's not because he's intimidated by Dally's knife. It's because, as he says, he's dying. The cold reality of mortality completely overrides all their gang bravado.
Dally rushes right to Johnny's bedside. He's so proud, telling him that they beat the Sox, trying to offer up this Rumble victory almost like a gift to his dying friend. But Johnny delivers this devastating, tragic realization. Useless. Fighting's no good. In just 4 words, Johnny entirely shatters the illusion of their gang victory. All that pain, all those broken ribs, it didn't change a single thing. It didn't save him.
And then, with his very last breath, Johnny begs Ponyboy to stay gold. He's asking him to hold on to his innocence, his goodness, and his ability to see the beauty in the world. He's totally rejecting the cycle of violence before slipping away like a blown-out candle. It's a complete and total shift away from the gang loyalty that brought them all to that vacant lot earlier in the evening.
And this right here is the ultimate tragedy. Dallas Winston, the guy who literally just 10 minutes ago said that if you get tough, nothing can touch you, he collapses completely. He slams his fist against the wall, breaking down in pure, unadulterated agony over the loss of his friend. His armor of toughness didn't protect him from grief at all. Actually, scratch that. It just made the break that much more devastating.
Which brings us to our final point, the futility of the fight. Ultimately, this explainer shows us that the Rumble, it didn't save Johnny, it didn't solve their social divides, and it left their personal needs completely unfulfilled, totally altering how these boys view the necessity of their gang loyalty. So, as we close out this analysis, I want you to consider this final thought. Does hardening ourselves to the world actually protect us, or does it just guarantee our destruction? Is the armor of toughness and violence a shield, or is it the very weight that drags us under? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the illusions of conflict, and I'll catch you next time.